age of 22, I was kidnapped by the Pinochet's secret agents in Chile, and I was tortured, and I was made into like a living holographic installation for the agents to go and have drinks, and they make fun about my body, and they make comments about my body. They put me on not on the bed, but on the frame, a metallic frame of a bed. They put me there, they opened my arms and they opened my legs, and I was fully naked, and it was actually quite awful. And then here in Australia, that happened in Chile, and then in Australia I was bullied at work, like it was actually quite bad, and that triggered memories of the torture, and that triggered a manic episode, and the whole thing collapsed, and I had a mental illness. And I've been dealing with mental health issues ever since, and that's why I don't have a home. I was really surprised to be homeless. I never imagined that that could happen. And when I had the manic episode, I used to live in a house, and I rented, and I surrendered the house. I put everything in the bin, and I got rid of absolutely everything that I own, and I ended up on the street. The other source of stress for me was John Howard, when he started to lash out at refugees. And he was constantly on TV and people talking, and the country I knew and made me feel safe and welcome all of a sudden disappeared. I had friends, a group of friends, and they were also talking against refugees. And I said to them, but I am a refugee. And they said, yeah, but you're different. And I explained to them that I'm not different, I'm a refugee, the same. Another one she said constantly people should leave their history and their memories and everything behind and start here as a new country. And she went on a small holiday with her mom and her daughter. And in the meantime, the husband cleaned the house, and he found a box and put it in the bin because he thought it was rubbish. And no, it was all her mementos. The first tooth from the child, the first boot, little things that she kept in a box, and she was really distressed. And that's what I said to her. You lost a box with memories. Imagine what it means to lose your whole life. My son also came one day crying, and he said to me, please, Mom, don't say you're a refugee, because people don't like refugees in this country. And that was really upsetting.
If you hadn't had the heads up about the fact that I was a Catherine House client, I wonder what it is you would see when you look at me. I'm sure you would see many things, but a homeless woman is not one of them. The fact is that homelessness knows no boundaries. It can happen to anyone from all walks of life. And although the stereotypical images we see in the media of people sleeping rough on the streets is an accurate and heartbreaking account of some of our homeless, it does not include the thousands of others doing it rough, couch surfing, sleeping in cars, and squatting. The most common factors for women experiencing homelessness are domestic violence, both physical and emotional, mental illness, sexual abuse, poverty, and drug and alcohol abuse, which is very often a form of self-medication. In many cases, women become cut off from family and friends and marginalised from society. They end up overwhelmed, dysfunctional, displaced, and isolated. My story incorporates all of these factors to varying degrees. How I got to be in this position is a long, complicated, and harrowing story, but what has happened since is nothing short of a miracle, and I do not use that word lightly. Before I delve into what has brought me here, I would like to share some of my life's achievements. Not because I want to ring my own bell, but simply to demonstrate there is no stereotypical person that suffers from homelessness, nor mental illness, nor addiction. Throughout my life, I've had long periods of productivity and stability and have achieved many great successes in my chosen fields, these being photography and academia, undergraduate and postgraduate awards and prizes, an academic medal of excellence, and an APA scholarship to carry out my PhD. I have worked as a teacher and a lecturer at several universities. I have exhibited my photographic works widely, and I have worked extensively in a variety of photography roles, from successfully running my own photographic studio to working as a clinical photographer in a major hospital. I was born in Adelaide into a middle-class family. My family wasn't exactly well off, but we enjoyed a pleasant, comfortable lifestyle, and I received a private education at Mercedes College. Reflecting on my childhood, I believe I was aware from a very early age that I was somehow different, particularly as I suffered with acute anxiety and extreme unfounded, ungrounded fears. These qualities were still there when I moved into adolescence, and I found living extremely difficult. When I was 17, I moved to Brisbane with my family. It was there I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression and prescribed antidepressants, and my life changed for the better. 6 years later, I experienced my first mental breakdown, and I sought help. The road to recovery was long and hard, but I did all that was recommended, and I made a full recovery.
Hi, my name is Maddie. I'm 21. I've had several journeys with homelessness over my life. Most recently from December of 2018 to about midway through last year, 2019. A big part of my homelessness was the fact that I don't have family to back me up. Like, my family's alive, but they're not family to me because they're not good people. They're abusive and just don't care. So that was a big factor for my homelessness because I didn't have anybody to fall back on to when I found myself in a crisis situation. Basically, I worked with my dad because he ran a restaurant. He didn't own it, he just rented it and ran it. I wasn't doing very well, but it was a job. And so I worked there as a waitress from about the age of 12. So Dad and I were at work one day during like the whole drama of my parents splitting up, and we came home one day to find that the locks had been changed and my dad and my stuff was out under the carport, and we weren't welcome anymore, even though like we were all separated in the house, didn't talk to each other, and so we didn't really have anywhere to go because we're in a small country town. I was maybe 14 or 15. Divorce was already scary enough, and my home life and things going on otherwise were already scary. And so to have that added insecurity of coming home from, you know, a long day at school to go to work and then to come home late that night and not have anywhere to go and not have a home anymore was kind of terrifying. And it was also embarrassing as well because I couldn't tell anybody what was happening. Like, this is probably the first time I've spoken about it. Yeah. Because I went to a private school at the time, which also I don't know how that worked out because I'm pretty sure we weren't paying school fees. So yeah, I wouldn't dare tell anybody there that I didn't have much money, let alone that I was sleeping on a restaurant floor. I would have been bullied even more relentlessly than I already was being bullied. So yeah, it was scary. It was a lot to kind of deal with as a kid. I just kind of tried to ignore it as best I could and just plod along because there was nothing else I could do.
Hi, my name is Monique. The reason I became homeless is because I've moved out of my parents' place when I was younger age and moved somewhere else. I moved over 6 times, a small apartment, and a unit a couple of times, And I even found myself many years ago with nowhere for a month and a half. I had to move in with my brother and sister. If I didn't stay with my brother and sister, I would have had nowhere to go. Yeah, it's not a nice feeling to have nowhere. And then I ended up moving to the country for 5 years into a house. And the place I'm staying at now, I've been there for 15 years and I'm very happy there and I'd like to stay. Well, I like the area and I enjoy living there. I'm happy enough.
Welcome. My name's Yatakantambu. That's my mother tongue language from my Tolai mother, Pacific. Having Yatakantambu, the last part of my name is the shells of the original currencies for Papua New Guinea, which is now the Kina. But the original currency was tambu, and that was little minute pieces of shell that would be threaded together in order to make a circle, which basically, if you go down the markets, and to this day, they still use tambu as well as kina. So tambu is from head to foot length, so that's $10. So when you buy something that's $30, you would go one tambu, two tambu, three, four, and so on. I was given as a gift by my mother as a wedding present and a sympathy present to my natural father's brother. Gifting is a custom in Tolai culture where, for whatever reason, that a child is unable to live with biological family is then passed on as a gift to another family to continue on being raised by this family. I then didn't feel at home at all, and my struggles was trying to find solid ground where I actually felt at home. The reality is that I'm just a sea full of shells, really, and I'm just finding my way back home. The sea is full of shells, and I'm finding my way back home. But many seasons, the shells get pushed this way, the tambu gets pushed that way, or it gets pushed that way, or it gets pushed on the shore, and we have that wealth to enjoy a moment in time. But never giving up on going back to mum's island and claiming that for myself, to feel connected, away from that homelessness of feeling sheltered by my mum, not the disconnection. Yeah. Oh, homelessness being a culture without roots. Through adoption for the colonialism and genocide, and blackbirding back then, that has what do you call it, severed a part of part of my culture. So how did I get into homelessness? Was after lots of time in foster care, my adolescence, I experienced drug and alcohol abuse, and my time in care had really put a strain on me, and therefore I had nowhere I wanted to feel safe except for Catherine House. When things would get really rough for me and I didn't feel at home, I would always return back to Catherine House and build my way back to having a house or a private rental or supported accommodation through them. So I was learning how to live with myself. Okay. Now that I have my own place, I want to get out and about more. I feel there's a real spring in my step. I feel revitalized and like I've got a new lease on life. I can, challenge myself and go out there and live the life that I want to live without worrying about someone pulling the carpet out from underneath my feet anymore. 14. Peace.
To be homeless is really horrible, and you feel insecure all the time. You feel a little bit hopeless, like there's no future. And in general, it's actually a very hard experience. At least for me, it was full of psychological pain, or it's been full of psychological pain. I would like to say that there are certain, we believe that certain type of people can be homeless, and it's not true. Anybody could become homeless in life if, like if something really awful happens, you never really know. And it's not just somebody that you see on the street. It could be there, like I've met women who are living in their cars, for example, and they're homeless.
In the mid 2000s, I became imbalanced and once again sought help, this time to no avail. So eventually I started drinking heavily. I knew there was something terribly wrong and I booked myself into a private clinic. It was there that I was diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder. It was a bit of a shock, but more of a relief, as it explained so much of my life and behaviours. I was extremely optimistic about recovery. My thinking was, now we know what's wrong, let's fix it. But unfortunately, this is not how it panned out, and it was in fact the beginning of a new nightmare. What followed were years of medication mayhem, 2 destructive marriages, several mental breakdowns, and numerous hospitalizations. I could hardly function, and I simply did not want to exist. Eventually, my dysfunction and unhappiness led to hard drugs, and I became an ice addict.
It was the 10th of December of 2018. It was roughly 2 weeks before Christmas, and I just finished. I just finished my training to become what my college called a senior. So I had that job. I had everything lined up, and then a couple of days after we'd finished that first aid training, we got our certificates. We all got a call being like, actually, we regret to inform you, we're shutting down next year, you're going to have to find somewhere else to live, you've got a week to move out. I didn't have anywhere to live lined up. It's the end of December. Colleges had been taking applications since halfway through the year. So I was just kind of put in a spot where I had to find something very quickly on a very limited budget. And I just couldn't. I did try really hard and just couldn't, so I thought, okay, I'll stay with friends for a week or two. And then those weeks turned into more weeks, and I was running out of friends to stay with. So I slept in the alcove behind the building I was supposed to be living in the next year, which was kind of ironic. And it was terrifying, because I don't think I technically slept, I just kind of dozed off a few times, but it's scary because, like, anything could happen and who would notice? Like, I'm not with anybody. I'm a 19-year-old on my own. a 19-year-old female on my own in the middle of a city around the busiest times of the year, sleeping on the streets with no way to protect myself. It was just terrifying. I was so scared of every single noise and stuff. I thought that maybe I'd get attacked, or I was very much expecting to be another statistic somehow. It was pretty terrifying. It was quite overwhelming as well because I didn't know where I'd go from there, whether this would be my new normal. I didn't want it to be my new normal. Yeah. It was humiliating to be in that position. It felt so unreal. Yeah, it was a scary time, very scary time. I felt so vulnerable, more vulnerable than I'd ever be comfortable being. I felt very helpless. I didn't feel very worthy of any help either. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do from here. This is very scary. This doesn't feel real. And then I ended up on the streets for a little bit because I was too embarrassed to ask for more help from people because I felt like I was outstaying my welcome, and I was I was running out of people to stay with because I don't have that big of a support circle. And I didn't really tell people. I was embarrassed to tell people my situation because I didn't consider myself homeless. I just considered myself a failure. My psychologist, I don't know how it came up. Somehow it came up in conversation that I'd lost my place at the university college, and she kind of got it out of me that I was basically homeless. And she was probably the first one to say to me, "Maddie, you're homeless." So she helped me put applications into the Homelessness Gateway and into Catherine House. And from there, I kind of got a place at Catherine House after a while. Like, I feel more secure now than I did a year ago, but there's still that uncertainty hanging over my head. I feel secure, and I feel like I'd actually made progress and that I could move on with my life then, because at the moment a lot of my life is still very much, where am I going to be in a year? What can I make that decision? Because what if I'm not able to be in the same circumstances as I am now in a year? It's very much limiting myself and questioning the future. And I'd like to not question things. I'd like to be able to just do what I love and what I'm passionate about without that fear of what if. But it would be good to have my own place one day. If I don't achieve anything else, I'd like to have the goal of having my own place and being financially secure enough that I don't have to calculate every single thing I buy at the supermarket and swap out things for home brand just in order to eat. I don't want to have to worry about having overdrawn fees and stuff. I don't want to be rich. I just want to be financially secure. I just want to have certainty.
This knitting has been in a box for 15 years, since the time I surrendered my house. I only got it back now because I got a flat. So I'm surrounded by boxes and all my memories.
Somehow, and I really don't know how, I stopped taking drugs and clawed my way back from the brink, eventually ending up back in Adelaide. I had 2 suitcases which contained all that was left of my worldly goods and I was completely, utterly broken. This is when, almost 3 years ago, I entered the Catherine House Emergency Program and subsequently their recovery program. I, like many women who reach homelessness, was totally dysfunctional. I had terrible difficulties communicating as I could hardly string a sentence together. I felt no joy or enthusiasm for anything, and I was in a constant state of confusion and terror. I couldn't stand any sort of physical touch, and I could not make decisions. It is extremely difficult to recover your mental health when you can't cope or deal with even the most basic of life's issues. After spending 3 months in the Catherine House Emergency Program, I entered the recovery program, which is designed to help homeless women who are experiencing mental health issues. So here I am, at the age of 50, finally receiving the mental health care I so desperately needed in a lovely, secure home, and that is a direct result of Catherine House giving me a safe environment, time to do everything thoroughly, generous support, and the advocacy to speak for me when I was unable. So inspired am I by all the amazing women I have encountered through Catherine House, the staff, the volunteers, and in particular the Catherine House clients, that I have gone back to university and I'm currently undertaking a Masters in Film and Documentary Making. And I intend to spend the next part of my life sharing women's stories and raising awareness for those in need.
Here come those dreams again about a big rain. All my world's a swimming pool and nothing